Welcome to the Ranchonomics Podcast, where we empower you to build a better ranch and transform your operations into a thriving business. I'm your host, John Haskell. Let's get started. Okay, welcome back to the podcast. I am very excited to have my dear friend Wally Olson here, and we are down at our annual conference in Orange Beach, Alabama. We have been enjoying a wonderful presentation by the Descartes family. Wally and I have been talking. We're here together in person. We decided we would record a podcast. I hope the audio quality is good enough today to get going. Wally, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Very good. And I'm thrilled to see you wearing our new company shirts.
Yeah.
So good job. So, Wally, we're going to talk about a new approach to the inventory triangle today. So why don't you tell me about this and tell me what you got?
Cinnamon Linhart came up with this. She has moved the inventory triangle out to add a couple more things, and so now it is a pentagon. It works out very well in what she has done, and what she's put in there is added in time and people, which is very important. Like I said, I really enjoyed the way it worked out, and so we're going to visit about those things.
Good. Let's give a little background on why did Bud talk about an inventory triangle? How did this all get started?
Well, because basically...
And Bud, we're referring to Bud Williams,
Bud
right?
Williams,
our dear
yes.
friend.
And on the inventory triangle, you have money and feed or grass that he had, and then livestock. And if you always had money and feed, you usually stayed in business. But if you have too much livestock, you could get in trouble.
Person could get themselves in trouble.
Yep. And so that's why you do it and why you think about it. But time and people are important too. And so Cinnamon added this, and, I really like it. So let's visit about them.
Good. So jump in.
Okay, time. Time is one thing. You can get more livestock, you can get more feed, you can get more people, you can get more money.
Yep.
But it's hard to get more time.
Yep.
In my opinion.
It's not just hard. Like time goes one way for both of us, right?
Yes,
we're both realizing that.
And
it goes forward,
fast.
not backwards.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so you got to, always be thinking about, one is, when it's gone, it's gone. And there's many kinds of time that you got to think about. You want to be building time into your operation. And basically what that is getting your stocker cattle lighter and your cows younger, so that you've got more time. And if you're in the sheep business, get your flock younger.
Quick side note on the sheep thing. One thing I've noticed is that the sheep industry as a whole does not really age sheep. I feel like the producers we work with have an unfair advantage if they will know the age of their ewes.
Yes.
Because you can trade an older ewe for exactly the same price as a younger ewe because nobody asks about the age.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you're running sheep and wanting to do sell by, if you will just age your sheep, you will have a huge unfair advantage. Quick side note. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. And also another side note in the sheep business is, the depreciation doesn't happen and stuff quite like it does in the cattle business.
Right.
So it just changes.
Yep.
And then the next thing on time is the turnover, rate you can have. How long do you own an animal? And how many times do you get cash flow, in a year, Like I like to talk about is you need to ranch like a dairy farmer, but don't milk the cows. And what I'm talking about there, a dairy farmer gets cash flow every 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
2
yeah.
weeks.
Whether they need it or not.
Whether they need it or not. They usually need it every 3 days instead of...
You might need it every 10 days, but you'd take it every 14. But that's a lot better compared to like a classical cow-calf operation, like most of us have experience around where you get paid once a year. Right?
Yes.
So instead of getting one check every 12 months or maybe two checks every 12 months, get 24 checks a year kind of thing spread throughout the year.
And then the next thing is going back is out of time, which is kind of the same as building time, but an old cow is out of time.
Yep.
For me, a big yearling is out of time because I don't say never ever again, but I'm probably not going to feed them.
Right.
So I'm,
And I'll use an example of that. Just before the first of the year, we had a set of yearlings that we had tried to market, didn't exactly work. They're, 890-pound steers down in Texas, and they just needed to leave. Like we weren't going any further than that. So no matter what the market was, they just needed to leave.
Next thing is on your time. You understand what I'm saying? What do you do with your time? Like, I always like to be able to try to scale my time. What I'm talking about there is scaling is like if you have a grazing system, it doesn't take much more time to move 1,000 cows over 100 cows. You just need a bigger gate.
Yep.
And you just need to always be looking at how you can scale your time to improve efficiency.
So use the same hour to do twice as much work. Let's say.
That's correct.
10 times.
And then there's the waste of time. Now, I'm noted to being a great solitaire player on my Surface computer, and I promise you that is a waste of time, probably, but I'm still doing it. But in the cattle business, if you're winter calving, if you're tagging all your calves, if you've got all of these production records that you keep on a cow that's only going to be there for a few years and stuff, you just have to realize that, you're wasting your time. And then the next thing on time is you can also use other people's time. And what I'm talking about there is putting animals out with other people and having, them do the work. Or what my wife and I did when we leased the ranch, we let other people go pick up the cattle, the truckers. We were buying, in theory, their time.
Yep. One of the nice things about buying other people's time, we tend to waste our own time because we don't pay for it.
That's right.
We don't waste other people's time because they're sending us a bill. And so I think I've really come to believe that, wasting time is almost, time is almost a sacred thing in our life. And if we're going to waste it, we're sort of committing a bit of a crime against ourselves. But the nice thing when we use other people's time and pay for it, we tend to think a lot more about how we do that.
You know what it costs you.
That's right.
Want to sharpen your business skills without leaving the ranch? Our Ranch Right webinars cover everything from the financial basics to business strategy and tax prep, all taught by our own ranching and finance experts from the team at Ranch Right. Join us online, ask questions, and get practical tools you can put to work tomorrow. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn to receive updates on our next session, and catch up on all of our past webinars by visiting and subscribing to Ranch Right LLC on YouTube.
So from time, let's move to people. People, you need to have the right people, like I said, the right people in the right seats in the right bus. And one thing that I learned from Bud is every day you always need to be better. You might be a little bit better one day and a whole lot better the next day, but always be building your skills. So, you're just better. And I'm talking about, the people that you have working for you. The greatest thing you can do is invest in improving them. And a lot of people worry about, what happens, if they leave. I remember an Australian said, well, what happens if they stay? That's almost worse. And also one thing you need to do is look at it as part of the compensation package. Working on this ranch, you're not only going to get paid, your wages, the money, and having, whatever the benefits are. And you need to let them know exactly what they're getting paid, on benefits and stuff. And part of the package is this education that they can take with you.
Yep. Very important. And for a lot of people that, young, ambitious people want to invest in continuing it.
Yeah.
Right? Some of the highest quality people I have worked with, they're hungry for that. They want that. Whereas if you get somebody that's like, I don't really do that, like, this might not be a good fit.
And what's interesting, I found, like I talked to people, I got thirds and thirds. Third of the people are really interested in improving themselves. A third of them are willing to do something, and 1/3 of them just really don't care. I mean, and on a ranch, you can have, I really just don't care, because you got a lot of, I really just don't care jobs, maybe, but.
Yeah, well, I spend more time with people at work than I do with my own family, and I've decided those are just people that I struggle with.
I understand.
So, rather spend time with people that are trying to get after it.
Correct. And then another thing on people is you need to know and understand yourself. Know what you will do and what you won't do. If you you don't want to own cutting bulls, you probably don't need to go buy some cutting bulls. And the next thing on people is the network. Build out a network of people that you can work with and rely on and stuff. whether it's cattle buyers or people taking care of cattle for you, truckers or everybody, lawyers, bankers, just everybody, just build that network. And then the next thing is money. You need to always have a reserve of cash out there, in my opinion, to take advantage of unforeseen opportunities and to take advantage of unseen errors that you made in your your planning that come along, droughts and just stuff that happens,
And you've said this a million times. We've both heard Bud say it. I've heard others say it. You just don't go broke if you have a bunch of money.
Yep.
Which is just a funny thing to think about. It's like too simple to even count sometimes, right? Now, you may not if you just sort of keep all your money in cash, you may not do that well, but you probably won't go broke.
No.
Yes, good.
And then another thing is when you're looking at stuff, always be thinking about the return on your money or the return on your capital. What is that money making you? And it will amaze you how much it will improve profitability if you do that. It's just...
Yep, to keep a reserve.
Keep a reserve. And then you need to understand how you're going to manage the risk of the business. I'm not talking about just the market risk, how you're going to manage the risk. And one of the greatest ways to manage a lot of the risk is have a reserve of money. When things go wrong, it doesn't really matter that much.
So let's talk about this real quickly. There's a stat that's often quoted in the U.S. that says most people do not have the cash. This is like civilians, right? Most people don't have the cash to deal with an appliance failure at home. So if your refrigerator goes down and you have $50 in the bank, that's a crisis. If your refrigerator goes down and you have $50,000 in the bank, it's not even an event, right? You can call Home Depot, they'll deliver one to you in the afternoon. Won't even cause a crimp in your day kind of thing. All you have to do is move stuff from one refrigerator to the other. Whereas if you have $50 and have to figure out how you're going to pay for it, that becomes a crisis. So that reserve turns many crises into non-issues.
Correct. And the next thing we're going to move on to is feed and grass or feed, and understand there that some of the best things you can do is waste some grass. It's always have grass, because then you've got more opportunities that you can, having that reserve of grass, you can always take advantage of opportunities. And, I learned this from my dear deceased friend, Bob Metzger, is having a reserve, you can make tremendous returns on money and grass, and having some in reserve enables you to really do the things that are really profitable. And then also, if you have a grazing system, you know where you're at, how much feed you have ahead of you all the time. And you know that way ahead of time when a drought's coming than anybody else. And the last thing is livestock. To me, you always need to be working at, lighter and younger. Like I said, always be working at getting your animals lighter and younger, because that's giving you more time to handle any crisis that comes along. And also, you need to realize that lighter and younger usually means less maintenance, which can be if you're comparing putting 300 pounds on something, if you have a 300-pound, start with a 300-pound calf and go to 600 pounds versus a 500-pound calf and go to 800 pounds, there's a tremendous difference in the maintenance there. And then, with livestock, basically all you're doing is doing the relationships of what you can handle, and, value gain, understand the value gain, understand the appreciation and depreciation going on, and also be willing to upgrade. And when I'm talking about upgrading, I'm talking about, one of the biggest upgrade is buy them one at a time and put them into a pot load. You're not going to ever change the quality of the calf per se, but you can change the appearance of that calf. You can make a thin cow fat, or sometimes make a thin calf fat, and stuff. So
yep.
You just need to always be, because the one thing about always owning a number one calf, it can only go one way, and that's down, most probably.
You can either hold or reverse.
Yep.
Yeah, good.
And so to me, you really need to be in your mind every day working through this inventory. And that's about all I've got to say about that.
I love it. Very good. Okay. So again, we're both very thankful to Cinnamon for coming up with this illustration. Just as a side note here, we have all been involved over the years with ranching.fyi and trying to teach sell-by marketing and try to carry on some of the things that Bud taught. And they're doing a great job doing that. Those sim courses are offered. If you look at their website, you can learn more about this during one of those courses. Those are offered on their website at ranching.fyi, and they have a schedule there of classes coming up. Real quickly, I wanted to, I'm going to share this picture. We're going to share it in the podcast notes too, but I'm going to share here one on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, this is the picture. And I'm going to grab my daughter, who, when she first saw this, had a slightly different interpretation of what we do with this.
Interpretation
so
of it.
I'm going to push pause here for a minute and grab her. And then
Okay.
All right, good. Evelyn Haskell is going to join us today to explain her interpretation of this illustration of the inventory triangle from a slightly different perspective. So we've got a picture of a clock, a person with a horse, some cows, some feed, and some money. So walk us through this. What happens here?
So you wake up and then you round up your horse and get him saddled, and then eat breakfast, and then we round up the cattle, and then we get money.
Love it. And that's the basics of the cattle business, right?
Yeah.
Good. I love it. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us today. Really happy to have you all here again. We're down at our annual conference. We've been having a ball down here, learning from Josh and Tara. Excited for the next couple of days. Excited to get a little vacation time away at the beach, aren't we? And get a little rest and relaxation in before we head back home to the great frozen north. So thanks again for joining us on the podcast. Please tune in to our webinars, 2 a month, first Thursday of the month, third Thursday of the month. You do a market pulse on FYI Monday morning at
financial Wednesday afternoon.
6:30 Mountain, 7:30 Central, and then financial Q&A 2 p.m. Mountain, 3 p.m. Central. So look forward to seeing you there. Thank you guys, and we will talk soon.
Thank you for tuning into the Ranchnomics podcast. We hope this episode helped you win today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend.